you hear that? The dulcet sounds of Tom Morello. This song, this was one like, how good was Rage Against the Machine back in high school, or for you, Jeff, elementary school?
It's they were ahead of their time. I feel like they're still ahead of like present day.
Oh yeah, they were doing stuff that we wish that people would do, and I don't know how long the licensing is, so we'll fade that out. No, they were way ahead of everybody. You like Rage or no?
I'm a big Rage guy.
No,
I don't.
not your style, not your cup of tea.
I don't. I'm not really a fan of Zach De La Rocha.
Fair enough.
His vocal
it's the hair,
styling,
isn't it?
His vocal stylings just don't do it for me.
The vocal stylings of Zach De La Rocha.
He sounds almost the same every damn song.
Well, welcome back to the vocal stylings of Jeff Boyd, Mike Babcock, and Bill Kenny here on a Monday night. The 716 Sports Podcast recording here the week of September 9th, 2019. We are live from Justin's house while Justin is not here.
He is in
We have hijacked his sound equipment, broken through a window,
That's right.
moved everything in this room 3 inches to the left.
Mm-hmm. It's just going to throw him off a little bit. You've been putting nickels in his... he has a landline for some reason. I don't really understand it. But one of these days...
It's going to take all the nickels out.
And then the weight's just going to hit him right in the face.
It's clean on the side of the face.
Gotcha, bum.
I'm not like the biggest office guy.
Still. Gotcha, bitch. There. We can still say that. It's fine.
I'm not like the biggest office guy, but I feel like that is by and far the best of the pranks that are pulled between Jim and Dwight in the office.
Very, very covert. I like it. It feels good to be here on a Monday. Justin in our nation's capital. Steve is still doing new daddy work as his wife continues to recover, so we wish them very well. And unfortunately, our new friend CBuff60 couldn't be here tonight.
Yeah.
Captain Dickweed, unable to make it.
Did not respond to our invitation to show
And
up on the show tonight.
Jeff, I know you're a little bit younger. For Mike and I, it is statistically very difficult for gentlemen in our mid-30s to make new friends. And I really thought we had the connection, but he hasn't been returning any of our tweets. So it's kind of disappointing to hear about that. We hope that CBuff60 will unblock us. We hope that he undeletes his mispronounced tweet. And we hope that at some point we can come with a tete-a-tete and become good friends.
So who posted the original post that he put?
I don't even know what he was complaining about. Was that you or me?
That was you.
That was me. I was
Bill's
manning
Dickweed.
I was manning the Twitter feed. I am Captain Dickweed.
No, Clever Dickweed.
I'm Clever Dickweed. Please.
Well, the
Call me
punctuation
Mr. Dickweed.
incredibly important there. It's a huge distinction, whether you're a clever dickweed or clever dickweed.
I didn't even see which tweet it was.
I'm going no comma.
It didn't seem like it was probably one of the ones where you told him that Josh Allen wasn't having the best first half because God forbid you try to have a little bit of levity in these situations.
Oh, and it was so dark. I was just playing the whole Donnie Darko soundtrack. It was just the worst, and things turned around. So our top story today: Buffalo Bills 17, New York Jets 16. LOL. Can't believe that happened.
It feels first off, before we get too deep into the game here, and it feels good to be back in this room talking about actual live action NFL football again. It's been a really long time, and the preseason is it's like a tease. You're like, you got 30 seconds or something to talk about, but at the end of the day, does any of it matter? It's all fleeting. If it wasn't for McCoy getting cut, the preseason could have happened with all of us in a coma, and none of us would have noticed.
Preseason's not even an appetizer.
No,
it's not anymore.
It's just like a kale-only salad, where you're like, why did I bother trying to consume this?
And it just nothing matters in the preseason. Teams are getting more and more. What was it? The Rams didn't do anything in the preseason. Like, teams are just not showing anything because it's just opportunities for players to get hurt or for you to expose your game plan.
Yeah, I mean, that means you have to run all your fake punt plays up 32 in the second quarter so that other teams have them on their docket.
God, I love that so much.
That is the ultimate middle. I don't know if I've ever seen a head coach just drop trow and grab his balls at the other sideline quite as much as Harbaugh running a fake punt up 32 on the road in the second quarter. That is a huge
Clever
power
dickweed.
move.
That was one of the all-time, and I would consider the Ravens to probably be my first or second least favorite NFL franchise. And if they're going to have Lamar Jackson and Hollywood Brown and Jim Harbaugh doing that,
I'm all about it. I'm in for it.
I may have to move them up to fifth most hated because that was pretty awesome. And half of Miami now just wants out. It's trade me.
I mean, before we even get too far into New York and Buffalo here. That might be the biggest story. Well, there's a lot of big stories, I think, in the division. The AFC is to be taken from week 1. Miami gets absolutely throttled at home by Baltimore. And I think throttled is being nice because as much as they weren't taking their foot off the gas on that fake punt in the first half altogether, I mean, they benched Lamar Jackson with, I think it was over a quarter left in that game and put an RG3, and we're still just rolling down the field. Miami is somehow worse than we all expected, and everyone here thought they were tanking.
Well, did you hear what they did? They have, 14 players on the roster that didn't even go through training camp with them? Yep. So after final cuts, they got 14 new players.
Now,
that is the definition of tank right there.
It's impossible to figure out what they're trying to do. It actually isn't. It's pretty clear that they're going to be the worst team of our lifetime. I don't know if they're going to match the Browns and Lions in going over. That doesn't matter. These performances, I think, if this team stays within double digits, how do you bet this? Like, if you're a guy in like this line, because you have a Belichick disciple playing against Belichick, but so is he going to pull up the reins? I don't know if you can pull up the reins against this team. They're so bad.
And compounded with that, they can't really pull up the reins on the offense while trying to get Antonio Brown up to full game speed either. Because if you try to get him in for his first few snaps and all you do is, run Sony Michel 20 times in the first half and then put in Jared Stidham, is that really going to
Will the Patriots be favored by 20? I think it's in play.
They should be. The Dolphins just lost by 49 at home.
I don't think they put a line on the game. It's that bad.
I think they'll put a line on the game. It's just going to be prohibitively high.
I
mean, the over-under in the game is going to be like 45.
I'm looking right now and seeing.
And 42 of them are going to be New England.
So right now, it is. Now this is a home game for Miami, mind you. It is Patriots minus 19.
That seems about right.
So 19-point favorites on the road. If this game was in Foxborough, I think we're looking at 24-25, yeah. Wow, man, that is...
Like you mentioned those Browns.
I'm a big college football fan, and that was like the A&M Clemson line, I believe, was 19.
And that was a competitive football game.
That was a competitive game.
There's a big discrepancy to be had here.
Unbelievable.
You mentioned those Browns and Lions teams that went over. I don't think either of those teams, as bad as they were designed to fail as much as this Miami team is. I think those were teams that were bereft of talent, had some injuries, and didn't get a lucky bounce to win a game or two. But I don't think anyone in that front office clearly went, I just give up on this season, especially that Lions team.
Yeah.
But this Miami team, and they can say whatever they want to the press. They can trot on coaches to say whatever they want.
Yeah,
it is
it's all window dressing.
Designed to accrue top draft picks and just...
And guess what? I still think the strategy works, and one blowout loss by the Browns doesn't change that opinion.
The strategy only works if the players, are on board with it to a point, though. I guess as long as the players that you want to be part of the future are on board with it. Like if you're fourth-string wide receiver who you plan on letting go after the season wants a trade, whatever. It doesn't matter if you made him mad. I would start being concerned if, the players that they do want to keep... Now, I don't know if there's anyone on the team, maybe except for, like, Minkah Fitzpatrick that they want to keep on the team. But, if Minkah Fitzpatrick and Kalen Ballage start raising their ire, maybe you have to try to do something at some point. But the Patriots...
They'll still be learning the playbook in week 5, so...
Yeah. And the Patriots on the other side of that field last night, looked every bit the traditional evil empire that they have in the past, and they were just all over Pittsburgh. It was not as competitive as that score even would lead you to believe.
I learned today that and I did not know this, I don't know how much common knowledge it is. Did you know that the 2007 New England Patriots were the first team to play in shotgun more than 50% of their snaps?
I did not know that.
And that was the team that Randy Moss was brought in from Oakland for a 4th round pick, I think it was. And people thought that Randy Moss was dead, basically. He'd only had 600 yards or something like receiving the previous season. And not exactly a full effort guy on the field. And then, lo and behold, he has the greatest fantasy season of all time for a wide receiver. He completely unlocked that offense. Wes Welker on the inside and Randy Moss on the outside. I mean, it seemed and it felt impossible. And it's hard to get yourself back in that mindset because everybody spreads now and everybody has, is running out of the shotgun more than half the time. But truly, and I know Buffalo podcast, I get it. The 2007 New England Patriots DNA is in almost every offense that currently exists in the NFL, right? In concepts, maybe not there in shotgun, but the idea of spreading it out, the idea of using your slot receiver as a weapon instead of just the third best guy, the safety valve on your team. There was so much going on with that. And, man, this offense, if you're going to be able to throw out Josh Gordon, Antonio Brown, and Julian Edelman, and then you have James White out of the backfield, on any play, you have 4 passing options.
And they're waiting for Demaryius Thomas.
And
then they'll have N'Keal Harry.
Philip Dorsett is back from the dead, apparently. Had a nice game last night. The Patriots look real good. I don't know what to say other than they look, they're not going to go undefeated in the regular season. 14-2, I think, is a realistic probability. And they have a better defense this time, too.
The best part for New England, too, is they don't play a team that was in the playoffs last year until week 9.
No,
so they are just going to get
they're
going to get up to
Super Bowl
speed
champions.
with very little roadblock.
It's really incredible. And yes, they're playing the Steelers, and they, obviously they play the Bills, who I think may have the best defense in the NFL. Again, we'll talk about that shortly. But yeah, Patriots look good. Water's wet. I know it's it's the same old, right?
I don't know. This might be the best that they've looked at the beginning of a season in a couple of years, and I realize even in a couple of those years they went and won a Super Bowl. So take that for what it's worth.
Well, they start slow a lot. They've lost that opener at home last year to Kansas, or 2 years ago to Kansas City, and they don't always start off hot. But yeah, they looked real intimidating last night. So. We'll see what comes of that, but this is the 716 Sports Podcast, which means we got to talk about what we saw yesterday. And we have to start, as we said, Bill 17, Jet 16. We have to start this, I think, with Josh Allen. He's the biggest story. Everybody got their ammo that they wanted. Is Josh Allen going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback that's the best of all time? Possibly, if he can bottle up what he did in the fourth quarter and do that. Is he one of the worst all-time quarterbacks? Well, guess who the last quarterback with 4 first-half turnovers was? Nathan Peterman against the Chargers that fateful day back in 2017. A lot to talk about. Mike, you look like you want to say something. What's your first? Let's let you lead off. What's your first thought on Josh Allen's performance yesterday?
Inconsistent.
Yep. Can't argue there.
I mean, okay, so it starts off the game hitting passes. They were getting about 8 yards. First off, they started the game just passing. I can't recall when they finally did an actual running play.
There were a couple breakdowns, but I believe it was 15 or 16 consecutive plays to begin the game.
It was
passing plays.
I found it kind of crazy that they have Gore and Singletary as your top 2 backs, not getting them involved in the game at all. Well, Gore can still produce even at 142 years old, and you have to see what Singletary can do, and obviously he showed later in the game what he's capable of. But you have to get them involved earlier, especially with this revamped offensive line. And this is one of the things that we were harping on last season is this line was so bad that it was part of the reason the running game stunk.
Yeah.
And it was part of the reason Allen had no time in the pocket and had what did they say, 630 yards rushing last year?
That sounds about
something
right.
Along those lines, yeah.
So you have to see what they can do, and for the most part, at the beginning of the game, I would say they looked all right. Not great. Dawkins got his ass handed to him on that fumble, where Allen fumbled.
No, yeah, there were a lot of issues on the offensive line.
But at this point, I think that's might work itself out as the season goes on, because we have to remember that Morse was not in the game at all in the preseason. He's the one that's responsible for making the calls, and once Naseki was in the game, it looked like the line play improved a lot.
It is a fascinating case. Now, one of the reasons that it was Joe Biscaglia, now of The Athletic, reported is that now because he feels like he has more offensive talent, Brian Daboll is going with what is a Patriots philosophy where every week you rip up the offensive playbook and you scheme to what you believe will defeat the defense in front of you. They felt that the passing game would open up the running game later on in the game, and that the weakness of the Jets' defense was at the corners. So that was the rationale. Was it the right one? It certainly felt like we were on a roller coaster for a while, but the numbers in the second half, and especially in the fourth quarter, the offense looked better than the Jets' defense did. And maybe they did wear them out. I don't know. if that's how true that is, but that was the philosophy behind it.
I mean, the lights on the Jets defense were just turned off when Mosley was out of the game. I mean,
the Mosley injury changed a lot.
I mean, their secondary was clearly a little bit banged up. They had a guy on the outside who was still fighting with an injury. I mean, obviously, you still have Jamal Adams back there, but they felt they could pick on the corners and were able to. The thing that Mosley was bringing to that defense, it looked like for a lot of the game, was that they wanted to utilize the middle of the field to Beasley and Brown. And when C.J. Mosley was on the field, I mean, you saw that one play. He backtracked good 25, 30 yards down the field to get that ball away from John Brown. He just took the middle of the field entirely away, and I think that really ruined a lot of what Brian Dable had game planned, a lot of what Josh Allen wanted to do on those plays. The second that he went out of that game, that opened right back up, and they just immediately started going right back down the field again.
So let's talk about the first half. Because we have to.
Do we? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can't talk about the ending without talking about the beginning.
We have to take this in chronological order. We have to talk about each of these turnovers. And I think we were in our Slack, and Steve said, none of these turnovers are egregious when taken in a vacuum. The Beasley pass should have been caught by Beasley.
Right.
He's a professional wide receiver. Was it a little off target? Yes.
It was low.
A
little bit.
It was low. And the delivery was not quite there. However, the ball popping up in the air, falling in Mosley's hand, and he goes pick six, you can't expect that.
No.
Okay? Well, actually, that's not even the first turn. Sorry, the first turnover
is the fumble that Mike was talking about.
Is the fumble, and you're in the red zone, or in field goal range, whatever we call that, the Connerson Ferris screen zone. And
Dawkins just got his ass beat. He didn't even touch the end.
So just
sack.
Blindside, you get screwed over. What are you going to do, right? The interception, as we mentioned. What is the third interception? No, it was
the third turnover is the second interception.
The second interception, which again, a tip ball,
tipped way up
in the air. A lot of time. Sometimes you just see everybody get into a mosh pit. This time, a defender comes down with it. Right. Fourth time, I have a bigger issue with the second fumble on the play call before, because on 3rd and 2, you're running a quarterback sneak. 2. Not 1, not
Sorry,
half.
being 6 feet tall doesn't help you when you're 2 yards away.
2. And you run a quarterback sneak.
I'll have you know that 6 feet is exactly 2 yards.
Yes.
He's just going to lay
but
down.
From behind center,
geometry.
you got to have an extra yard or so. So
the play call on third down is infuriating, and then the miscommunication. It looked like there was just a missnap on Morse and Allen.
I mean, we talked about it on the show last week. This was the first time that Morse and Allen have ever played together, and it just so happened it was during live game action. And I mean, I'm more surprised it didn't happen earlier in the game, that it took them that long to really have the miscommunication. But I don't know that that is surprising. That might have been the least surprising of the turnovers. Frustrating for sure.
Frustrating, especially because it's the fourth one. Like, if that one happens in place of the blindside. So, how many of those are his fault? Not the problem, I guess you could have, is that there was another interception in the first half that was called back because of a Jets penalty,
and another ball that was hit off the hands of a defensive back that could have been a pick.
Right.
I think I'm more concerned about those two than the actual interceptions. I would agree with that.
But it is. But when you take everything into account, and you think, okay, you need to be able to put the ball, if it's a clean delivery on the Beasley one. I think the Beasley one individually is probably the worst one. I would put the interceptions ahead of the fumbles. We don't know. I don't remember hearing which, if it was talked about in the post game. Did Morris snap the ball early? Was Allen not ready? I don't remember hearing anything about that. I don't know.
That would all be.
It doesn't really matter.
Theorizing anyway.
4 first half turnovers. The biggest thing to me is that the defense gives up essentially nothing off of that. Well, literally nothing, because it's still 6-0 at the half. And the Jets are down a competent kicker. They can't make extra points. We find that they can't kick I don't think they would have tried to kick a field goal unless it was. I don't even know if they would have tried to kick a field goal. I don't know the scenario where they would.
I think after the missed field goal, they decided they weren't going to try using their kicking game anymore.
Well, I think they might have. If you're talking about like the end of the game, let's say he hits one of those balls to Anderson and they have a 35-yard field goal. I think they take the field goal shot before they just try to chuck them all into the end zone. But they were only going to do it if it was, well, the Bills came back and took the lead. I guess we got to now. They were going to go for it on 4th down as long as they had the lead.
So 4 turnovers, you're down 6-0 at the half. That's incredible to me. A great string of luck. bad luck on the turnovers, good luck / fantastic defense. And as a whole, everybody played well. I mean, there were a couple of times where, people seemed like they were just giving some shit about Matt Milano because, Le'Veon Bell beat him on a couple of passes. That's not a fair... Bell is one of the most versatile backs in the league. I thought Milano played fantastic.
Yeah, there was not a banner day for Le'Veon Bell. He's gonna get his. He's one of those guys who's going to get his yards, and it doesn't matter who he's across the field from.
Yes,
Milano did pretty well, all things considered, I thought. And
I mean,
getting one touchdown and the 2-point conversion jumping over a guy is not an indictment of what Milano did.
I just look at, the sack numbers. I thought Shaq Lawson looked really good yesterday. He looked rejuvenated. Maybe, just knowing that his time may be up. Maybe he's playing for a contract.
That might have been his best game.
He only had four tackles and a sack. I thought he looked really well. Looked really strong.
A couple pass deflections too. He was all over the place, I felt.
Jerry Hughes had a sack and a half. He combined with Lorenzo Alexander on that. I mean, those guys looked really good. Jordan Poyer played excellent again. He got a sack in there, and overall the defense just. I mean, you had to stand up. They gave up 8 points because you take into account then the second half. There's a safety, 16 points. You give up 8 points. It should have been 6. The 2-point conversion should have been picked off. They gave up one drive.
They should have
one drive.
I think they should have had the sack on the 2-point conversion. I think the pass was just so too close. Good.
Yeah, but Darnold made a good play.
Yeah, it was. Darnold makes a nice play to get it off. But overall, I mean, look, the defense is going to have to carry it, right?
Yeah, and I'm not going to blame the defense. If the defense gives up 8 points every game, I'm going to be happy with the defense because then that starts becoming an offense problem.
Well, I think to a point though. I mean, yes, the defense is clearly the better part of this team. I don't think the offense is exactly a lost cause.
No,
I think the Jets' defense is very good. They're not as good maybe as the Bills' defense, but the Jets have a very good front seven, and then a guy named Jamal Adams playing safety.
Right,
they're good. They're a top 10 defense probably, and when Devin Singletary got involved in that offense instead of Frank Gore, it felt like two different football teams.
Well, and that's the thing, right? 2 touches in the first half for Singletary, 1 catch, 1 rush, and then out of nowhere, he gets, not out of nowhere, but he gets unleashed in the second half, and then it's really a coming out party for Singletary, and he, I think from day one, establishes himself as the biggest threat out of the backfield, and someone that can do it both on the ground and in the passing game, which is so huge for teams to be able to have the versatile backs where if you can keep the same guy on the field for the majority of the snaps and you don't know if he's a running or a passing threat. Like we've seen, Chris Thompson in Washington, when he's on the field, or Tariq Cohen for the Bears, there's these guys that that are more likely to be passing threats than running threats. And when you can have the guy that is able to not necessarily be subbed out. He's a 3-down back, and he's versatile enough where he can affect plays on both the receiving game and in the running game. And we saw that from Singletary in the second half. I mean, that's why you get rid of LaShawn McCoy, because you got a guy that's 8 years younger than, or 7 years younger than him,
and can do the same thing.
Has that and looks more explosive than LaShawn McCoy has. Most of his Buffalo tenure.
It's 4 carries for 70 yards at the end of the day for Singletary, plus whatever he did through the air.
Right.
I mean, there is absolutely no excuse unless he gets hurt, that he does not get at least 20 touches next week, and he should be the feature number 1 back in this team. Doesn't mean he can't play Frank Gore. Yeah, no. So it's almost 100 yards of offense on 9 touches.
It's fine. I'm not like Frank Gore will have a role. Now, here's the problem with Frank Gore. One, Frank Gore he's not going to catch the ball at this point. He had 11 rushes for 20 yards. That's not going to, whatever that is. I mean, you got to get to 3.5, and you're halfway there.
Yeah, I mean, people are trying to crucify Chris Ivory for just running forward 3 yards into the line. That would have been an improvement over what Gore did against the Jets on Sunday.
So now, do we think any of it has to do with the fact that most of Singletary's yards came after Mosley left the game, and Gore's came while Mosley was still in the game?
It doesn't hurt, but I mean, the Jets' defensive line is still the same group of guys. They've got a dominant defensive line with Williams and also Williams up there. I mean, that's no easy task.
But what they were making it sound like on the broadcast is that Mosley basically called everything on the defense, and without him out there, they were just entirely lost.
And I agree that Mosley is the quarterback of the defense, and that's
which a defense also shouldn't be 100% reliant on one player like the Jets defense looked like it was on Mosley.
Right, and was the Mosley injury, was it a turning point? Yes, it was a turning point. Was it the turning point? Does that, do the Jets have an excuse for losing that game when you're up 16-0? No, they don't. And you should, at home, essentially up 2 scores plus 2-point conversions. That should not happen, that you give up 17 points in the second half and lose.
Or their offense should be able to do something.
I mean, really, all they had to do was sustain a drive, even if they weren't really moving down the field.
All they had to do was win the field position battle. So that is all that came down to at that point. Is all the Jets had to do was win the field position battle, and they couldn't do it.
All you had to do was beat Corey Bojorquez in a position battle. You didn't do it.
It hurts. So Allen in the second half, that is why you draft a quarterback in the top 10, right? He's making throws. I will say this. He had a couple throws on the run that the ability that he has to put the ball on the run right where it needs to be, I was impressed with it. I don't think that he's a great quarterback at putting a ball where the receiver can grab it and then run. It seems like he tends to bury it in the chest and the sternum, right?
Yeah.
But on some of these plays where these plays break down, where he's got to be flushed out of the pocket, that arm strength is evident. And if he can be that accurate with it, he looked really good. I think it was what's that guy CNAF on Twitter that everybody hates, but he charts all the quarterbacks.
Yeah, CN Fahey or whatever his name is.
CN Fahey. He actually said on his accuracy ratings, not whether or not it was a catch or not, but on his accuracy ratings, Josh Allen was 30 of 37. He ended up being 24 of 37 in terms of true completion percentage. But if you're going to be that accurate, that's a great sign. And Sam Darnold was 24 of 30 in terms of the accuracy, but he had so many. Was it Jamison Crowder was the first?
Crowder had 14 catches, was it?
And didn't get to 100 yards. Crowder
they were all They were all about 6-yard catches.
Well, they were all. If you look at where the cluster of Crowder was, it was all. He was basically the hot read on the blitz, and Darnold every time would just chuck it over there, and he would get 5-6 yards, and that was it. But no, I thought I am on the record as not agreeing with it. I'm concerned about it. Second half especially, I thought Josh Allen played very well. He recovered. There are quarterbacks that would have wilted after having 4 turnovers. There are quarterbacks that would have not been able to come out for the second half. He did. He performed really well. I thought the pass to Brown was great. The run, he had the pass. The one I was talking about specifically in my head was the pass to Sweeney when he was on the run. Put it right where it needed to be. If you can get that, great. Now we need to see consistency, right?
Yeah, I mean, no one's going to tell you, whatever your opinion of Josh Allen as the future quarterback of the Buffalo Bills is, there's no doubting his mental resolve, and he's definitely, nothing's going to shake him. He's got a lot of belief in himself. He's one of the few guys on the team you think, you look at it like, other than like Lorenzo Alexander, who are the leaders of this team. Mm-hmm. Second guy I might mention to you is, I think Josh Allen's the leader of the team. He's got that mental fortitude and ability. Oh yeah, he's. Some people just have it. A lot of people don't grow into it. He's just got it.
He was named a captain. Again, I think culture's dumb. I guess I don't fully understand it. I think you win with talent, but the Bills have a culture and they've bought into it. And I saw that Steve Tasker was kind of going after some of the GR guys talking about it too. It feels great after a win. I think it's very easy to make fun of after a loss. I don't think it's as important as people make it out to be. And as much as McDermott is frustrating as hell sometimes with the clapping and the way he goes about his manners, and I think a lot of it's pandering. But he's got 53 guys that have bought into him, and if they're going to buy into him, it doesn't matter what I think. I don't have to buy into it. If they're buying into it, then. What are you gonna do? If they think they can go out there and win because of it, and they're gonna go win, then whatever. I can sling my arrows, and it doesn't really matter.
Well, even the most talented team with the wrong culture, which I'm guessing culture would be the wrong word for what they're really going for. It's more of a mentality. The culture is the mentality, the not getting down, the not letting each other get down, the be accountable thing. Yeah. You can have the most talented team in the world, but poor character players who are in it for themselves, and that team will be pretty bad.
Yeah.
Well, I think
that's what he's going for with culture.
Yeah. Well, the reason I think that culture is a buzzword and gets debated is I think that a lot of people think that, and this maybe has happened at points to teams, and maybe even here in Buffalo, when the coach says he wants to build the right culture, it's not about the players, it's about a culture, that team would pass on more talented players because they want to get a guy who fits their mindset or their environment, whatever you believe the coach's mindset is. He wants guys who are like-minded. I think it's important for a winning team to have a group of guys who want to play and win together. That shouldn't mean that you don't take whoever is available that's going to make your team better just because he's not, quote-unquote, a good culture guy. I think that's what people bandy about when they say, I don't want this guy here for whatever personal reason it is that they don't want that guy there. They're like, he doesn't really fit in with our team. I think that
There's
a good culture
coding with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But like the Patriots, who just, by the way, signed a guy who actively spent a week trying to get fired. Signed that guy, and I don't think anyone knowing is going like, oh, he's going to ruin the locker room culture. How is he going to fit in there with Tommy Brady? Like, no one's worried about that because you build a culture correctly. Anyone can come in and see like, oh, okay, that's what we do here. I'm part of it.
Because you go to New England, you get put in. You either get in line or you get out.
Well, the culture is the Patriot way.
Yeah,
and everyone tries to duplicate it, and it gets a little lost in the shuffle sometimes.
And I think a lot of his assistants that try and build, because there have been no successful Belichick assistants in the NFL. Unless, am I missing somebody? Patricia, oh boy,
no.
Sorry, Detroit. Charlie Weiss and Romeo Crennel, they both crashed out real fast.
Vrabel's got a shot still.
Vrabel's doing fine. Second year, we'll see what he does. But I think Vrabel will be the first. I mean, a lot of these guys, Mangini flamed out pretty quick after that one
Josh
season.
McDaniels had a great tenure in Indy.
Yeah, unforgettable. When was that again? McDaniels made a playoff with Tebow, so I guess there's credit to that. And then Mangini had the first season in New York with the Jets. He made a playoff. I think those are the only two playoff berths of any teams, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's really not. I mean, it is because of Bill Belichick, but it's not about Bill Belichick anymore. I mean, if Bill Belichick retired tomorrow, as long as there's still people that are in that system, in that building, players who are in the system in that building, it would continue endlessly. And people go outside, like, well, we'll hire Brian Flores, we'll hire Mike Vrabel, we'll hire Romeo Crennel. He's seen what it's like in there. It takes so long to build that system, and honestly, Belichick only gets to build that system because he's so successful and wins so many games. I wonder how many coaches, if you give them like 2 or 3 more years, they would have the players they all want. I mean, having the players you want, again, a buzzword. Well, he didn't really get the system he wanted. I mean, Tennessee's been trying to get the recruits they wanted for 15 years now. I mean, sometimes it just doesn't work. But I think it's easy to just see like, oh, we'll take this one little apple off the tree and plant it in the ground. But it's because of 70 people in the same building that it works, not because of one. Right.
Well, and we'll see what comes of it. And I do think, I mean, who knows how much longer Belichick's going to be there, but the culture building, the Bills have done what they feel that they need to do in terms of that. And like I said, if it's not just one guy, I mean, it certainly starts, I think, with, the Pagulas, and then it trickles down to McDermott, and it goes to Bean and those guys, and they have to be on the same page. And it certainly helps that Bean and McDermott kind of grew up in the same area, in the same franchise with Carolina, and having that familiarity, because you do see sometimes GMs and coaching staffs, they inherit each other or they're brought together, and that always seems to kind of create some issues. And there's always, the clock moves so quickly in the NFL, where a lot of these tenures, 2, 3, maybe you get your 4th year, but you got to produce something in that time frame.
I mean, it's even worse for the NFL than it is for the other major sports. I mean, if you're a one-year manager in Major League Baseball, you still get 162 games to figure something out and sell something to ownership.
Right.
In the NFL, you go 2-9 your first 11 games, the last 5 don't mean anything, and you could be gone.
Yeah, the NFL is turning closer and closer into the NHL in terms of...
And even at least in the NHL, you probably get 82 games.
Probably. Although we've seen
Mostly.
coaches get fired and go win the Stanley Cup, too. So,
sure.
It can go both ways. But, yeah, I mean, who knows what we're going to get out of... but, yeah, the culture, if it means something to everybody, fine. Whatever. Again, I don't get it, but that's my own problem I have to get over. So, overall impressions, the defense won the game. Nobody wants to talk about the defense. The quarterback had moments of absolute brilliance, moments of complete baffling performance. I'm just asking for more consistency at this point. But the good news is that this schedule is pretty soft coming up. You got 2 more games here where it's not like you're facing world beaters. You're facing a Giants team that was blown out in Dallas. You get to play in the same stadium 2 weeks in a row on the road. I mean, that really is, that's kind of a unique advantage. I know the team flew back here, and it's an hour flight, but it's a stadium they play in every year anyway. There's nothing.
There's no surprises.
There's nothing spooky about it. You know exactly what it is.
In the same climate that you live in, I mean,
right.
It's easy of a road game as you could hope for, probably in week 2, and this is a Giants team, and I watched almost all of that Giants-Cowboys game after the Bills game was
the game
done.
that was on after.
The Giants' defense is not very good.
No.
Dak Prescott, who was probably somewhere in that 10th to 15th best quarterback range, looked like John Elway for 4 quarters. The secondary is very bad. Perfect passer rating. Mm-hmm. The run defense was bailed out a little bit, but I think Zeke not quite being fully ready to return to full game speed. There is no reason why Josh Allen cannot have a very good game through the air and why this offense cannot have significantly more success this week. On the flip side, the Giants' offense still really appears to be basically just Saquon Barkley. So I don't know if it's at Milano or Edmonds or who on that defense really becomes the guy who has to try to wrangle a guy who does not ever seem to be wrangle-able.
It's got to be a team effort on that, I think, right?
But if your front seven can pin back Saquon Barkley, you've got to feel really, really good about the Bills' chances to go into MetLife Stadium and win consecutive games to start the season.
If you do what you did to Bell yesterday, and he's going to get a couple, but if you can contain him for the most part, Barkley gets a score or he gets, over 100 yards, but not both, something like that, then yeah, I think you're in pretty good shape because, Sterling Shepard is in concussion protocol. We don't know what his status will be for week 2.
Playing with a hurt hand, even if he's healthy.
Right. And, their big off-season acquisition was Golden Tate, and he's suspended game 2 of 4 on a 4-game PED suspension. So, and then on the defensive side, there's not a whole lot that you have to be really worried about.
And their only other weapon is Evan Ingram, and I really like, Hyde and Poyer should be able to negate a lot of that danger, too.
He's not Kelsey or Kittle, so there's no reason why, and I do think I would be disappointed if the Bills scored 17 points against this Giants defense, which does not appear to offer too much resistance.
No, they should be looking at a comfortable 20-point win, and that's just if they play as well as they played in the second half yesterday. That's not even assuming there's any growth. I think the team that showed up for the last 20 minutes of yesterday beats the Giants by 20 or more points.
Sounds reasonable.
Now, every football game is different.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen.
On paper, sure.
Eli Manning could get in a car crash and Daniel Jones go for 500 yards on Sunday, for all I know.
And we don't want that to happen.
We don't want that to happen.
We hate car crashes. Except for
we also hate Duke quarterbacks.
You love NASCAR, though. So you're a big NASCAR guy, and you like seeing the crashes. You like fireballs. What do you think the line is right now?
6.5 for Buffalo.
Mike?
8.5.
Bills are 2-point favorites.
I will take that. I don't bet on sports ever. That seems
2-point favorites.
That seems nice.
Is the open? Checking to see what the over/under is on it. I would imagine that we're probably sneaking up into the mid-40s on that, though.
That just goes to show you how bad the Bills have been the last 20 years, though. The Vegas is trying to bait people in to take the Bills.
I think that shows that people have a lot more faith. The fact that the Bills are road favorites. It doesn't happen that much. You know that. It doesn't happen that much.
True.
42.5 was the opener, and it's now at 43.5. And actually, the Giants opened as 1.5-point favorites, and it is now Bills as 2-point favorites. So the line has moved significantly. Vegas.
And
I wonder if they made that line before the Giants game was done.
But 56% of the bets and 56% of the bets are on the Giants. Only 41% of the money, though. So almost 60% of the money on the Bills. The Sharps got in there real quick at the beginning. I can't blame them on that. So yeah, the Bills right now sitting in -2. Very, very interesting.
Underdog mentality isn't a bad thing.
You know what the Patriots opened at?
Did we do? Oh, was that before?
No, what did they open at?
19.
11-point favorites.
Oh,
was that it?
And it got that to 19.
Oh, wait.
I think the reports of Miami's players trying to all quit got through pretty quickly.
That is
an incredible
Total
story.
roster turnover.
Incredible.
Hey, you go 14 players at a
unprecedented.
time. You have full roster turnover every 4 weeks.
We are truly in the upside down world. But yeah, it is very interesting to see what could potentially come of this. I'm curious, man. I don't know. It feels like the Bills should dominate, but whenever history has shown us that this doesn't actually work out all that frequently. So
I feel a little bit better about this
though.
team, though.
Different team, right?
Oh yeah, I find myself, in spite of my best efforts, to always remain incredibly pessimistic. Feeling a little bit better about this team than I have for a few years. Just feel like they're a little bit more well put together. You have a top 5, if not the best defense in the NFL. You're going to find yourself at least in every game, which is something we can't even say for past teams here. And if the offense figures something out, they could string some. I mean, the schedule is not difficult. This is a winnable schedule. This is a winning record schedule for a good team, easily.
I mean, at worst, they should be, 4-2 going into the bye week? Or 4-1 or 4-2 going into the bye week?
Right now, at Giants, then the home opener against the Bills, the big one at the end of September, hosting the Patriots, then you're at the Titans, and then you hit the bye week. So
you could say 3-2 even.
Yeah,
Should be
and that's
worst
even
case.
if you
3-2
split
is
Cincinnati, Tennessee.
3-2 is a very reasonable expectation.
But then you come back from the bye, and then you have, 4 or 5. You play half your NFC East
after
schedule.
After the bye, you're home to the Dolphins, home to the Eagles, home to the Skins, and then at the Browns, at the Dolphins.
So you can go 5-1 in that stretch, possibly.
I mean,
Obviously, things can happen, but
it's hard because you don't want to draw so many conclusions based off of one game because we don't know, and we saw nearly everything in that game. If we're being completely honest, it
saw
could
the best of times, the worst of
right.
times.
I mean, things could be worse. The defense may give up, 20 points in a game instead of 6.
I mean, the defense isn't going to be able to save you from 4 turnovers. I mean, having a negative 4 turnover differential and still winning the game is a statistical aberration in the history of the NFL. It just doesn't happen regardless of who is playing. So you certainly can't count on the defense to bail you out that much. The offense is going to have to be a lot cleaner. I don't care if they're playing the Dolphins. I don't care if they're playing the Giants. I don't care if they're playing the Patriots. You cannot have a negative 4 turnover differential in the NFL and expect that your defense is just so good that you can dig yourself out of any hole.
Because you won't do it often.
And veteran quarterbacks, and I know Eli Manning's not Eli Manning the year that they beat that Patriots team we opened the show talking about.
07.
Yeah.
No,
But I mean, Eli Manning is still a veteran quarterback who's going to make you pay for mistakes. A lot of these guys, I mean, Andy Dalton too, they can't. Another benefit the Bills had yesterday was that it's easy to pile on Josh Allen's first half, but Sam Darnold was not exactly a world beater yesterday, and if he was a little bit better, especially on the last 2 passes he made downfield to a absolutely wide open Robbie Anderson that he just overthrew both of them by about 5 yards, we're talking about an entirely different football game here today.
Right now, I think it's fair to say Josh Allen is the 3rd best quarterback of the 2018 draft. And I don't think that that's a stretch. I think he is behind Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield. I think there is no way that Josh Rosen can get ahead of him at this point. And I think he's now 2-1. Well, he's personally 1-1, I suppose, against the Jets. And he's won the game, a head-to-head matchup on the road. I think that was pretty impressive yesterday. And the running ability, which was not talked about at all, which I don't even know, I don't think he was asked to do that at Wyoming. Having that unlocked, that is a big part of a modern NFL quarterback, is being able to run the ball and advance the ball whenever possible. And is the running sustainable or not? I mean, he ran 10 times for 38 yards. He didn't have a 100-yard game like he had last year, but it is a threat, and defenses have to respect that, and they have to attack differently. They have to, it slows down a pass rush when the quarterback has the ability to scramble out and make a play in the open field.
And Anthony Barr was so close to signing the Jets and getting jumped over twice a year, and so he decided to stay with Minnesota and only have it happen once.
The contract in his hands, man. Had it in his hands.
No,
So,
I don't think there's. I agree with you. I think at this point, the only debate is whether you like Darnold or Allen more, and people are going to see what they want to see. I think on both of those quarterbacks, you have Sam Darnold, the guy who Week 1 last year just carved up the Detroit Lions, and everyone was like looking around them like, what is this guy already? And then he had some injury issues. He's been inconsistent. He did not look great.
Yep.
The only reason his passing numbers were decently high is because, as you mentioned, he just kept taking that little dump off the Crowder over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
I think Josh Allen was almost weirdly, in spite of the 4 turnovers, Josh Allen was the better quarterback yesterday.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have anything else really to add to that. He was, and I think that's a great sign if you're a Bills fan. So, let's go around real quick. So I think I know where everybody's going, but Mike, what's your prediction? Bills Giants Week 2.
Like you said, I really don't think there's anything to fear with the Giants, and you would think this is kind of a perfect scenario for a trap game, except for the fact they're playing Cincinnati, who is not expected to be that good, so you're not really in a position to overlook them for a good team. I'm more worried about next week being a trap game. I think the Bills are going to come out, try to clean up the problems they had on offense this week, and I think they're going to win 31-14.
Wow. Blowout on the road. Jeff, what do you think?
So as much as I talk up the fact that they could easily win this game by 20, I think it will be closer than that. I think the Giants are going to be a little bit motivated after a tough loss. They looked good coming out against Dallas. They did not finish well in those final 3 quarters. I do think Buffalo's offense shows up a little bit. I have Buffalo 27-17.
I think it's going to be something similar to that. I would say Bills 26, Giants 20. I don't think the defense can do that twice in a row. I think defense can be a little bit more random. But I do think that the offense cleans a lot of stuff up. 2 turnovers, maybe. Not 4. For the love of God, please not 4, so we don't have to keep doing this every week. Team home opener, there is sometimes a little bonus boost that you get out of that. Team comes out a little bit hotter than usual. I think we actually may have seen that a little bit with the Jets yesterday. Just everybody's a little more amped up when it's the home opener. Second straight game on the road, but like I said, same hotel, same facility. Literally nothing's changing. You can just leave your equipment in there.
It's not even a change of season between these games. It's not even like they played the Jets in January.
It is so weird
that
they got this scheduling quirk, which it's a quirk and it's 2 in a row on the road. But my God, if you can sweep the New Jersey teams, I think that's a great start to the season.
It does. It feels very satisfying.
So I'll go Bills 26-20. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than that, but I do ultimately think that they can turn over Manning, who if is forced to make a play that is a throw beyond 5 yards from the line of scrimmage. It's just not it's not in his arsenal anymore. It's just not a play that he can make, really.
The Bills team of 2 years ago loses this game.
Yeah.
The Bills team of 2 years ago that couldn't stop a nosebleed would go into MetLife Stadium on Sunday and get trampled by Saquon Barkley and lose by 2 touchdowns. This Bills team that exists right now, I feel a lot better about. And we even talked in all the talk we did about the defense, we didn't even talk about Ed Oliver, who was throwing guys off with both hands, literally at points in the game yesterday.
I think it was almost 70% of the snaps too. I mean, yeah, he's really good, and we didn't hear about Tre'Davious White at all because he was just whoever he was on was just there was nothing there. I mean, he is truly an elite cornerback, and I will lead the chorus of jokes that the Bills gave up a chance to pick Patrick Mahomes, but ultimately, Tre'Davious White may actually be one of the, he's a decent enough consolation.
He's one of the top 5 cornerbacks in the NFL, and I don't think there's much of an argument against that.
Yep. So, we'll see what comes of it. Like I said, it'll be an interesting game. It's not something that happens very frequently. 2 straight road games in the same facility. It's a weird quirk, but I do think that it's pretty reasonable to say that the Bills are in a very good position to start 2-0. Will they start 2-0? We're going to hope so, obviously. But we shall see what comes of it. So, with that said, I think we're 3 for 3, and I don't feel like we're being super homer about it. I think it's reasonable to say that they could pull this one off.
I mean, if you'd asked me going into these two games which one I thought they were more likely to lose, I would have said the Jets game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, and too, the Jets are it's a division rival. There's a lot more familiarity with it. The Jets and the Bills are kind of similar in a lot of ways. Like, just
two defense first teams with second year quarterbacks and running back questions.
There's a lot of similarities, and I think that's why they played a 1-point game. If the Jets win Week 17, 24-20 in Buffalo, that doesn't surprise. I mean, right now, seeing that game yesterday, that doesn't surprise me. It was a weird game where all the scoring for each team kind of came in bunches, and it didn't really amount to a whole lot.
I mean, any 1-point game essentially was one tip or bounce away from going the other way very easily. There was not a lot separating those teams. It just happened that everything New York did well happened first.
Right.
And then everything Buffalo did well happened at the end.
What would be interesting is if the Bills only have 2 turnovers, and they get that field goal in the first half. And how does that change the complexion of the game? Could that have been a double-digit Bills win? There's a not very unrealistic scenario where you can draw that up where, yes, that is the case.
I mean, you have that first half possession with the fumble. That's probably a field goal. Yep. It's a whole different game from there because the Jets are playing from behind, and who knows? Mosley doesn't get hurt. Gore runs a little bit better. They don't get Singletary touches. There's so many variables in any one of these games.
And it's butterfly effect at that point. But yeah. But the Bills are 1-0. They're in good shape, I think. There were a few other surprises in the AFC. Mike, you were talking about the Bengals. I thought the Bengals were impressive enough yesterday. They seemed to be operating fine. I thought they were going to be toast without A.J. Green, and then Joe Mixon goes down in that game. But they have a very capable backup. I wouldn't even call him a backup. He's really more like a 1A, 1B. But Giovanni Bernard, able to do it. John Ross with a massive game.
John Ross looked fantastic. It was the first time, I think, in his time with Cincinnati that the coach just told Andy Dalton, listen, we have a guy who is probably the fastest player in the entire NFL. Just throw him the damn ball.
Yeah, just go deep.
And it worked really well.
And we saw that with, a lot of guys. John Ross did that. Hollywood Brown did that. DJ Chark did that. Just run deep, guys. Figure it out. And we'll figure out the rest of it. But if you can get behind the defense, go for it.
You were talking in the open about how a lot of offenses molded themselves and still do after the 2007 New England team. I think we're seeing the first steps of how many teams are trying to replicate the 2018 Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, and it's already happening. And the Chiefs are doing it without Tyreek Hill, but Sammy Watkins, I don't want to say he was back from the dead, but what a performance he had against Jacksonville yesterday.
I forget exactly what the advanced stat was on his first of the 3 touchdowns he had yesterday, but he ran something like 23 miles an hour, which was faster than he ran at any point all of last season. Not just on a touchdown.
And
faster than he moved all
healthy.
of last year. Yeah,
he's already healthy.
Well, I don't think for Sammy it's never been a question of talent.
Right.
It's a question of can he actually stay on the field for enough time to make an impact.
Yeah.
And for 4 quarters yesterday, he was clean, healthy, and dominant. But the question for him is still going to be every week until if he ever stays healthy long enough for us to forget about it, the question for him is always going to be, can he keep doing it? Because I just assume that in 2 weeks he's going to injure his foot and miss a game.
Right. So the way I look at the AFC, I think there's realistically 13 teams that can make the playoffs. I think you can cross off Miami. I do think you cross off Cincinnati, and I don't think Oakland's a playoff team. I think any of the other 13 teams, and they're in tiers, right? I don't think Denver or Jacksonville have a great shot of getting, and now the Jets have a great shot of getting there. But you look at the across the horizon here. The Browns lost yesterday. The Steelers lost yesterday.
Steelers are bad.
The Colts lost yesterday, and the Jaguars, like I said, not in that great tier. So and the Texans are currently losing. We're recording this on Monday night, and they're in New Orleans, and I think they're actually about to drop this game to New Orleans. So, look, these are your peers, right? These are the teams that you have to beat. You got to be better than these teams. Shouldn't say the Texans are. They're in New Orleans territory.
Down 3 with the ball.
Down 3 or 5 to go. So we'll see what comes of that. But point stands that's what, to me, that made that Jets game so much bigger yesterday. That's why you get a good result no matter what happens with the Colts and the Chargers, because one of those teams is going to lose, and you're going to have to assume that one of those teams is going to be in pretty good shape, right? Especially the Chargers, who I don't realistically think can win the division with Kansas City in it, but I think are very strong wild card contenders. One of the 2 or 3.
I mean, the Chargers could literally be a 12-win wild card team, and I wouldn't be totally
just
floored.
like they were last year.
Yeah, I was about to say last year they would have won most divisions.
I believe they won 11 or 12 games last year. So that's my point. It was a pretty good day overall for the Bills. Looking around, and look, I don't want to be talking about the playoffs already, but you have to compare yourself to your peers, right? And in the AFC, these are the teams that you have to compare yourself to. And you got a couple lucky breaks, and I think you beat one of the teams that you will be compared to this season. I think that's a massive win on that front.
I think the Bills were the 8th or 9th best team in the AFC this week, which is
fair.
Just on the outside looking
Patriots,
in for the
Ravens and Chiefs.
I mean, those are easily 1, 2, and 3 for me. I think that the Chargers were pretty good. I think the Colts, even though they lost, looked really good and came back late. The Titans were fantastic, I thought, for 4 quarters. They were great. And Derrick Henry as a receiving threat. All the man just needs to do is start getting his forward momentum going, and no one could do anything about it. And then the Bills are somewhere in the next little tier there with whoever else is left. I mean, Denver and Oakland haven't played yet, so I'm assuming one of them will look halfway decent. Who knows? That game could be a 2-2 tie for all that can happen. Mm-hmm.
And we're hoping it is.
I really hope so. I'm actually hoping for a scorigami, and unfortunately 2-2 is not a scorigami. It's happened before.
It's like Providence Steamrollers versus Plymouth Bulldogs.
Basically, me and my friends spent a lot of time yesterday looking up scorigamis.
We did get one yesterday.
Yeah, because the Baltimore-Miami game was a scorigami, so we kept yelling out, like, we had the full chart of, you can go to, like, there's like a scorigami website now. You can go to, like, every individual combination of scores that's happened. It'll tell you how many times it's happened, when it first happened, and when it most recently happened. Unfortunately, 2-2 has happened a bunch, because back before the forward pass was really a thing, there was a lot of safeties and not a lot of scoring, so 2-2 was a very common one.
Every day I thank John Boyce for being John Boyce.
Truly an innovator of the arts. And you mentioned Jacksonville. Like, I can't let the show end without talking about the fact that Gardner Minshew, of all people, looked like the best. He might have been the best rookie performer yesterday, not named Hollywood Brown.
He's back. Gardner Minshew, a Washington State quarterback. Get used to him. Without knowing the entirety of the severity of the injury to Nick Foles, but it does sound like he's going to be out for a while.
I mean, he broke his clavicle when he was still with Philadelphia, and he was quoted yesterday as saying that this is worse than that, and he missed some good time back there. So I would not be totally floored, although they haven't done it, not be totally floored if you do not see Nick Foles again this year.
Which would, I mean, that sucks for him.
He gets injured making an absolutely perfect pass in a competitive game against Kansas City, and it changed that whole game. That game really might have been a shootout.
It would be pretty disappointing. But yeah, it's all in all, it's a good day for the Bills. Any Sabres news that we need to touch you other than Bob McKenzie saying that Rasmus Ristolainen is definitely on the trade block? I thought that was, I mean, if
Bobby Margarita coming back from vacation dropping bombs,
Justin Falk and Rasmus Ristolainen, all gone, baby.
I said this 5 months ago. I will say it until I'm wrong. I don't think Rasmus Ristolainen is gone before the start of the season at this point. There is nothing that has happened that will change that. They can keep I don't care who it is, and Bob McKenzie has an incredible track record of being right about basically everything. So I do believe that they would actually trade him if someone gave a good enough offer. I think the trade market for Rasmus Ristolainen is gone. They are not going to get an offer that is worth moving him before the season, and he will be on the roster day one, regular season game one for Buffalo.
We'll see what happens with it. Camp's coming up. Prospects are finishing up.
Olsen looked fantastic all weekend.
Yep. He needs to be on the main roster sooner rather than
later. High up on it.
Yes, like give him talent. Like that is the thing is when you call up like these talented 21-year-olds and then you stick them with corpses on the fourth line and give them 6 minutes a night. Like you need if you want to build this team, they need to fail in a higher level situation. Players need to be somewhat appropriately matched with talent. I know that that's never going to be perfect, but for the love of God, like, don't give him Kyle Okposo and Johan Larsson.
You can't treat Olofsson.
Can you please give him something better than that?
You can't treat Olofsson like you treated Bailey and Baptiste for 5 years. Just calling him up for a game, sticking him on the fourth line, saying, well, he didn't produce, and sending him right back down to Rochester for 40 games. Let him play. If he's terrible for a year, and there's nothing to redeem about them, we'll deal with that when we deal with it.
Yep.
You just can't keep pushing it down the road and saying, "Oh, we'll figure it out." Like, just gotta play the kids. There's nothing after a certain point, and I know Botterill wants to be the guy because he was in Pittsburgh. Where these guys, they learned to win together in the AHL. They come up together, and it worked because they had two of the best players in the NHL on that club, so they didn't really have to rush the prospects.
Right. And we don't have that luxury too.
Yeah, and
like where's my Chris Letang?
Yeah, where's Letang and Murray, Crosby, and Malkin? Right. Yeah, if I had those four guys,
I'm just saying,
Olofsson can wait a year in that case.
What else, man? Like I'm just saying, it would be nice to have one of those dudes.
Yeah,
right. So. There's really not. I don't know what else to say about the Sabres at this point. Just
nothing. They're still not doing anything.
There's nothing to go on. So we'll just let that lie as it is.
Credit to UB football for playing what I think was a very competitive game at Penn State. That was not easy to do.
Kind of fell apart a little bit in the second half. But
I mean, it's the classic mid-major on the road at a Power 5 school.
Yeah, it's 100,000 people.
It's a death game. Penn State is deeper, in better shape. They have athletes, incredible level of athletes. I thought Myers looked good. They played well for a half. They dominated time of possession. They had their shots, but at the end of the day, Penn State is a better football program.
Yep, and that's okay. They performed pretty well, though, all things considered. Good job for them. And other than that, we don't have really much else to discuss at this point. So,
shout out to our friends in the NWHL for landing a broadcast deal.
That is great news for them. They will be on Twitch this year. Any news on your front? Can we say anything yet, or still waiting to hear on that? So
we are
someday we will
crossing some T's
that.
And dotting some I's, but for those of you who listen and dabble in our broadcast stuff as well, we will have news on that. There are some things that are official behind the scenes, but we want to wait until we have some more confirmation before we talk about it all. We got time before the season starts.
Yeah, plenty of time. We will wait on that. So hopefully that is good news coming up. Other than that, I think that just about does it. We like to thank Justin's dad for rewiring his garage. We were talking about that before.
And letting us into this house while Justin wasn't here.
Justin, not very handy. It's a shame that this house exists and the function that it does.
Shout out to the dogs for still being excited to see us.
Yeah, the girls are still here hanging out. Good to see them again.
Shout out to Justin's 2 TVs in this room for both using the same remote, so I didn't know what to do.
Jeff, who is a very capable mid-20s technologically advanced young man, was literally unable to figure out how to turn on the TV.
Well, I did eventually get the TV turned on.
Why does it have so many buttons?
Yeah, it was just completely baffling. You look like my mom trying to figure out our surround sound, so that was pretty cool to see.
Don't let my age fool you.
No, I don't. You're actually 48, and that's a little secret.
Would any of us truly be surprised?
I saw
other than me.
Hey Jeff, I was driving down the street yesterday, and I saw a guy who looks like how I think you'd look at about 48.
That poor son of a bitch.
Super handsome. Very good. So we will be back. I have no idea who will be here and how many of us will be here, and that's not really the point at this point.
Justin will be back. He'll probably be here because this is his house, but we'll see about the rest of us.
We have to assume he'll be here, but we cannot confirm nor deny it. So we will see what happens.
Yeah, now that we've done a show without him here, anything is possible.
Yeah, I think we're pretty comfortable with it. We nailed it. So.
Well, thank you all for listening. You've already found this particular episode because you've made it to the end of the show, so you listen to it. But in the event that you would like to find future episodes, and let's just say someone plopped this down on a CD on your desk and you don't know where you clicked it, you can find this podcast wherever your favorite podcasts are found, on Apple Podcasts, on Google Play, on Spotify now, on Stitcher, on Podbean. We are on Facebook at 716 Sports Podcast, on Twitter at 716 Sport Podcast, singular, because character limits are fun. We are on Instagram. We don't have a Snapchat. And last I checked, we are not on LinkedIn.
Yet.
Podcast.
Check us out.